Week of Prayer speaker, Pastor Duddley Francois. We can truly say that this is a Fall Week of Prayer like none other. Pastor Duddley, we cannot wait to unpack our time together, so let's jump right into it. So my question to you is, what was the inspiration behind the theme, information?
Well, the word information has certain play on words. You can look at it in several different angles depending on who you are. And I find it important for the word to reach people where they are. And so information, literally the word information, things that people can use, strategies, influence that people can use. And secondly, I think what's important is for us to have information, inward formation. And so with information, you can have information in order for you to be in formation, in position. And so it's just a play on words, an ability for, depending on who you are, where you are in your walk of life, maybe you just need random information because you didn't know some things. So it's important for you to learn and study. Some things are for the ability for you to change your life internally. And some people just need some direction where they need to go in their life. So it's a play on words, depending on who you are. It's an opportunity for everybody to find a blessing.
Pastor, you've certainly left no stones unturned as you delivered powerful messages throughout the week. I was really touched personally by Tuesday's message entitled, I Don't Lie, I Justify, when you give 5 points of why we justify our sins.
Shakara, I completely agree with you. Tuesday's message was very uplifting, and it was one of my favorite messages myself.
Okay, so the question is, why do you think it is so hard for young people to recognize our sins and to allow God to deliver our lives?
Well, not just with young people, but just with people in general. I think it's very difficult for people to recognize their sins because people aren't really prone to see themselves, to do a lot of self-analysis. It takes a lot of discernment, a lot of wisdom for someone to be able to constantly put themselves in check. So, especially for a young person, I think it's sometimes very difficult in a world and in an atmosphere where you're so conditioned to think about what other people think and what other people believe, how you influence other people or prove to other people. You have to pass grades so that other people can say that you're qualified, or do certain things so that other people can show you're self-approved. And so with a lot of that mentality, I feel like a lot of times people tend to, especially with young people, tend to really condition themselves to what external thinks and not necessarily the internal. And so, when a person begins to start to see themselves in their life, that is sort of the last thing that a young person begins to start to consider. And so when you begin to have a walk with Jesus, Jesus forces you to see yourself on the inside. And when a young person, which I feel is always the best time for a person to give their life over to Jesus, because a young person who's never really seen who they are on the inside finally does, there's such an awareness, there's such an appreciation for Jesus. Because it's the first time you really see who you are on the inside, you begin to see, wow, I really need Jesus. And it's a great turnaround when you find that opportunity to see Jesus.
Okay, so you've heard our favorite topic. What was your favorite topic to preach about?
For the week, it was I'm single and it's killing me. Only because it is something that I feel like it shows that the Bible teaches more than just spiritual transformation, and I take solace in that because I can use the Word of God not just as an opportunity for me to be blessed spiritually, but an opportunity for it to be a guide to my life tangibly, that I can see, that religion and God and all these things about faith doesn't have to just meet me on a Saturday. It can work with me on a Tuesday or on a Wednesday or on a Thursday. And so I liked I'm Single and It's Killing Me because you can see a biblical example and see how tangible, how relatable it is to circumstances that you're going through. And so I kind of liked that simply because it was so different from anything else that we did for the entire week. So it was a lot of fun.
Okay. So you're no stranger to Greater. You've preached at chapels, you've judged class projects, and you were also the keynote speaker for our Career Day program. So what drives you to keep your relationship with this academy?
Well, Greater New York is in the greatest city in the world, which is New York, where I'm from. I'm proud to say that the Greater New York Conference is the place where I started my ministry. It was the conference that saw something in me and invested in me. And so that connection with Greater New York, especially with the Academy, is strong because it was here where I had my first opportunities to really, spread my wings as a young pastor and so on, and gain positive feedback. So that connection was real and it was tangible. But more specifically, I think preaching in this environment is a challenge for any preacher because you have to be real with this type of audience. Young people can realize what's fake and what's real. And so you can't just come with your typical lines, your thus saith the Lord and all these different things and think that you're going to appeal to this group. And so it keeps me grounded. It keeps me level-headed. So I love coming back here. I love coming back to speaking to this type of group because it allows me to allow the gospel to be somewhat simple. It allows me to remind myself that it's simple because I need to preach it as simple as possible so that people can be able to receive it. So Greater New York is great. This academy has done a lot in shaping my early years in ministry. So you always want to respect the places and the people that put you on in the beginning.
Your time with us has truly been a blessing to the students, faculty, and staff. So my question to you is, what sermon do you think made the greatest impact on the student body, and what aspect of this experience greatly impacted you?
What sermon I think impacted the young people? Well, I would hope it would be all of them in some way, shape, or form. But to be honest with you, I think that you can't give one justice. Whether you guys recognize it or not, there's actually a strategy in approaching certain weeks of prayers. And so for me, coming into this week of prayer, my mentality wasn't just what I was going to say, but when to say it. What day am I going to say what when? And I think that that's important because in order for Wednesday's message to be effective, they needed to be Mondays. And so for me, my approach to weeks of prayers, especially for this particular type of audience, is in the first day or the first moments that I have, is to gain respect. In whatever shape or form, gain a certain respect. People recognize that what you're saying is real, it's honest, and it's something that is meaningful to them. Then be open. Allow them to see who you are in a tangible way. Allow them to open up and show themselves. And so with that, it allows Wednesdays or even Friday's message to be powerful. And so I believe Wednesdays and Friday was really good. The sermon that spoke to I'm Not Supposed to Be Here, and the sermon that spoke to More Than a Fish. Those two sermons, I think, were really geared to reach the heart. But it's necessary to set up the heart, to allow the heart to realize who they are, why they are what they are, so that they can realize their need and then give their life over to Jesus. And so those two sermons, I think, were really probably the most impactful, but you need others to set them up.
Okay, so you practically answered the next question. It was going to be what two sermons you would want us to take with us for the rest of our lives.
Oh, yeah. Those two were good, but they're sort of saying the same thing. They're sort of like part one and part two, where in I'm not supposed to be here. It's an ability for us to realize, man, I need to follow Jesus. I need to love him. I need to accept the fact that he's done so much for me. And so Wednesday's message was an ability for us to be aware of who we are and of. But I believe that Friday's message, More Than a Fish, is part 2 to that, in the sense of saying, well, okay, we recognize him, but have you made a decision? And what did that decision look like? So I'd like to say that as much as Wednesday and Friday are 2 different messages, they're actually really one. So if anything, I would say Wednesday and Friday, I'm cheating with your question, by the way, but Wednesday and Friday is one. And I'd like to also add Mondays. I like Mondays. I would want people to last with Mondays because Mondays set the tone. And the impression behind why I feel Monday is important is because if you don't realize where you're in, if you don't recognize you have a problem, it's very hard to find the problem. You can talk about Jesus till the cows come home, why he's good and all these different things, but if you don't realize why you need him, those messages come back empty. And so last thing I'll say is, I believe that conviction happens when the word meets a need. So a lot of times when people come to church or their weeks of prayers or what have you, they hear the word. Some people are blessed by the word and they make a decision. Some people, it is what it is. But you have an opportunity to hear the word. The reason how and why a person finds conviction is when they hear the word in the time that they have a need. And that word speaks to a need. Once the word speaks to an area where you know you're going through, you're convicted. And so if there is no need, if you don't realize I need something, there's an awareness of I'm in a bad state. You don't have a Monday sermon, Wednesday's sermon and Friday's sermon doesn't work. So I would want them to last with an understanding of recognizing I'm in a gap. I have a problem. So that I understand, wow, but God is saving me on Wednesday. I'm not supposed to be here. God is giving me opportunity to be saved. And on Friday, an ability for us to rededicate our life to him.
Pastor Duddley, thank you for allowing God to use you to minister to our hearts and minds. This now concludes our session of After Chapel Chats, where there's always more to the sermon.
Thank you very much for having me, ladies. Appreciate you.